hell of a fight.
Hell of a fight, huh?
Yeah, you gotta listen. You got a master in there with a mean hell of a motherfucker, right?
Mike Tyson recently praised former unified champion Errol Spence Jr., calling him a mean mother, while discussing Spence's highly anticipated comeback fight against Tim Tszyu. Tyson explained how styles make fights by pointing to Spence's brutal war with Sean Porter and his incredible ability to recover from a devastating knockdown before stopping Dennis Tszyu. According to Tyson, Spence's toughness, resilience, and relentless pressure make him one of the most dangerous fighters in boxing.
I used to look at the fight that Terrence had with Porter, and I looked at the fight that he had with Porter. He handled Porter so easily when it was up and down fight with Spence. But then again, styles make fights.
Exactly.
The last fight Spence had with the Cuban, god damn. He got up, he got dropped, got up. The guy's a hell of a fighter too. Got up and killed him.
Tyson also warned that standing still against a relentless pressure fighter like Errol Spence Jr. is a recipe for disaster. He stressed that the only way to survive against Spence is to keep moving constantly, because once Spence starts cutting off the ring and applying pressure, he has the ability to systematically wear opponents down with his power and aggression.
You can't stand still with Spence. You gotta move.
Yep. Southpaw too.
Yeah, he has to do a lot of movement. He has to do a lot of movement, because if you stand still, he'll break you down. You can't let him on you. Spence.
Despite previously helping Terrence Crawford defeat Errol Spence Jr., Crawford's respected trainer, Brian Bomack McIntyre, offered one of the biggest compliments possible to his former rival. McIntyre predicted a dominant performance from Spence, saying that if the former unified champion returns fully focused and physically prepared, he has all the tools to overwhelm the rising challenger with his elite skills and championship experience.
Oh man, that's gonna be a great fight. If Errol gonna be himself, he should win. But we don't know what he got left.
Yeah.
So, but if Tim come in and be himself, he'll push Errol to the edge.
Do you think that's like a true 50-50 fight, like a crossroad fight for both those guys?
No, I don't think so. I think Errol probably will.
Think Errol?
Yeah, I think he probably will.
Promoter Eddie Hearn added another layer of intrigue by warning that overlooking the dangerous Australian challenger would be a serious mistake. He emphasized that Spence is returning after a lengthy absence, filled with injuries and physical setbacks, making this comeback far more dangerous than many fans realize. According to Hearn, jumping straight into such a tough fight carries significant risks.
Yeah, I actually think it's a good fight. I think Tim, for a while now, Tim has been a much avoided fighter because, there was this kind of perception of him that he was this monster. But the reality is he's had a couple of defeats and people look upon him now as a kind of opponent. And that's what Errol Spence's team are doing. But I think Tim's more than an opponent. I think he's a very good fighter and I think he's got a lot about him. And I think it's a very dangerous fight for Errol Spence to come back to.
Hearn even suggested that a major upset could be on the horizon. He backed the hungry underdog to shock the boxing world on American soil, believing this high-stakes showdown creates the perfect opportunity for a career-defining victory that could reshape Australia's boxing legacy.
2 years out of the ring, obviously the car crash, the retina problems over the years. And yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. And I wish Tim all the best. Again, not on our team, but with our hopes to build Australian boxing, hopefully he can go over there and get a big win.
Renowned broadcaster Ben Damon also shared an interesting observation after the challenger's intense training camp in Bangkok. He revealed that the challenger appears mentally transformed, carrying a new level of confidence and determination. Damon believes this dramatic change could signal that a far more dangerous version of the fighter will step into the ring on fight night.
Yeah, I've spoken with Jeff Fenech and with Tim Tszyu quite a bit in the last little bit, and they're very comfortable. They had a great training camp in Bangkok. It's a very different sounding Tim Tszyu. You interviewed him the other day. Did you get that sense? There's a different feeling to him at the moment. I don't know if I can put my finger on it. Could you?
The expert highlighted a major advantage in the challenger's corner, pointing to the decision to work alongside a legendary Australian coach. According to him, that partnership has taken the challenger's motivation and confidence to another level. He believes the coach's experience and guidance will provide the mental toughness needed to push through adversity when the fight turns into a grueling battle.
We've seen so many versions of him over the years, and we've been so close to him throughout that period, but that's the thing about Jeff, and I know there's plenty of people who will dispute whether Jeff's the right option for him at this stage, and I'm obviously close with Jeff, but I can't see that he's going to be less driven, less confident, less motivated, or less capable in this fight with Jeff Fenech being in his corner. I think he's going to go to a new level of desire, and I think if this fight gets to a position where he needs motivation, he needs someone in his corner to send him out there and to make him run through brick walls, Jeff's going to do that. He's the guy. He is probably the greatest motivator in the history of Australian coaching in any sport. He learned it from the great Johnny Lewis, and he has it himself.
Emphasizing just how unpredictable this matchup is, the commentator insisted that anyone claiming to know the outcome is simply making a guess. With both fighters coming off career-defining physical and mental challenges, he described the contest as one of the most intriguing fights in recent memory, where the only way to discover the truth is when the two men finally meet in the ring.
I don't know what happens in that fight because I simply don't know what version of Errol Spence we're getting. I've got no idea. It could be any number of versions of a man who has been a truly phenomenal and obviously a superior and world-class fighter. But he's coming to Australia after this long break with all of the other things that have gone on through his life. And he's taking on a hungry Tim Tszyu, a man who has been beaten badly on a couple of occasions himself and who we cannot be sure what version we're going to see of him either. So this is just anyone who tries to make a prediction on this fight is guessing, because nobody can possibly know. It is just one of those things where you're going to have to watch it to find out how it goes down, because if you think you know, you simply don't.
Lonnie B expressed serious concern about Errol Spence Jr. returning against such a dangerous opponent immediately after suffering a devastating knockout defeat. He questioned whether the risk is simply too great for a comeback fight and admitted that he finds himself leaning toward the Australian challenger.
I think it's good. I think it's good for Spence. I mean, Tim Tszyu is a lot to bite off of. A first fight back coming off his destruction of Terrence Crawford. I just think that's, if I had to pick, I would lean more towards Tim Tszyu. It seems like I don't know how Spence, I just don't know, you know what I'm saying, and the way he looked.
Speaking from the perspective of someone who understands the sacrifices of boxing, the analyst made an emotional appeal for the former unified champion to consider retirement. He explained that seeing a fighter with such an accomplished career continue to risk both his health and legacy is difficult to watch.
I don't want to see Spence fight again. That's just me. And it's emotional for me because I'm a fighter. And Spence, I would rather Spence just go out with that right there and just remember him for being great in his time and just fighting a guy that was better than him. Like, I don't want to see him lose to Tim Tszyu or even get stopped by Tim Tszyu.
Reflecting on the physical punishment Spence endured in his previous fight, Lonnie B warned that the former champion may no longer be able to absorb the kind of heavy shots that once defined his toughness. He believes there are troubling signs that raise concerns about history repeating itself if Spence is pushed into another brutal battle.
I'm going off his last fight, him getting hit, not taking shots well, I can see it happening. Not as detrimental as Crawford did it, but I can see maybe something like that happening.
Respected trainer Boozy Ennis dismissed the growing criticism surrounding Errol Spence Jr., arguing that many people are underestimating the former champion. He expects an exciting, high-level fight against an opponent who is coming to win, and believes this matchup presents the perfect opportunity for Spence to prove he still belongs among boxing's elite.
I think that's going to be a good fight, man. Everybody just sleeping on my man Spence, man. I think Spence going to do what he's supposed to do, man. I think, and then he's fighting a guy that can really fight. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that, you know, he's a good boxer, nothing, but he comes to fight. You know what I mean? So this is going to be a good test for Spence, I think. And I think Spence going to do well.
The veteran coach pointed to a major tactical change that he believes could make all the difference. According to him, the arrival of a legendary new trainer will help unlock the formula for victory. He argued that returning to a more traditional approach to training, built on discipline, endurance, and old-school conditioning will ensure the former champion remains strong and composed when the fight reaches its toughest moments.
Now he's with a new trainer. He left Derek, and now he's with Ronnie, too.
Ronnie, and he was one of the best trainers in the world. You know what I mean? Old school. He like me, old school trainer.
What's the difference between old school and new school training?
Old school, they go back, you know what I mean? We do like all the old stuff, you know what I mean? All that strength and conditioning, that's cool, but you gotta go, you gotta know how far to go with that strength and conditioning. Back when we was coming through, we didn't have that strength and conditioning. Our own strength and conditioning was chopping wood and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And, you know, lifting logs and, you know what I mean? Boxing. We wasn't doing all that, which was that stuff they be doing. They be doing all kinds of stuff. I can't even call the stuff they be doing. And then if you notice, most of them guys that do a lot of strength and conditioning, they run out of gas quick. You know what I mean? You know, ain't nothing wrong with it though, but it's, like I said, it's how far you gonna go with that strength and conditioning. Some of them guys overdo it. You know what I mean?
Predicting an explosive contest, the master trainer said he does not expect the fight to go the distance. He emphasized that success will depend on making smart defensive adjustments, improving head movement, and adapting under pressure. Confident in his fighter's ability to make those changes, he predicted a dramatic stoppage victory that could surprise many observers.
What Spence should be doing, Spence should be Spence, man, but he must move his head though. Because Spence should come right at you and just throw some punches. He got to, and work on catching them shots. You know what I mean? If you ain't gonna move your head, you got to catch some shots. You know what I mean? With your hands, you know?
Decision and stoppage. How's that fight end?
I think it's gonna be a stoppage. Somebody getting stopped. And you know I'm going with Spence. So.
Former world champion Chris Algieri believes this matchup comes at the perfect time for both fighters, as each is looking to rebuild momentum after difficult setbacks. He explained that matching the returning former champion with one of the division's most dangerous young contenders would have been a risky decision, but this particular opponent provides a balanced test. In his view, the fight will reveal exactly where both men stand at this stage of their careers.
Is it a good fight? Yes. But the question marks surrounding him are there. And, you know, because he's been so absent from the sport, he's been inactive. He is coming off, you know, that really bad loss to Terrence Crawford. How much is really left in the tank? Only him and his team will really know at this point. How is he going to react to punches on fight night? We're never going to know. But honestly, Tszyu is coming off a really bad run himself. So I do actually think it's a good matchup in terms of timelines, their timelines crossing. It makes sense. It's not like we're throwing, Errol right into Virgil Ortiz. Right. That I would be very concerned about and really wouldn't want to see that. But this fight makes sense.
The respected boxing analyst explained that the former champion's transition from a technically polished amateur style to a more aggressive, crowd-pleasing approach may have shortened his longevity. He warned that a fighter who relies on absorbing heavy punishment cannot afford a long period of inactivity, adding that ring rust could become a serious problem if he is forced to take clean shots early in the contest.
Really, I couldn't tell you. Really couldn't tell you. We don't know how much Errol has. I think Errol at his best would be one of the top guys at 54, but we haven't seen Errol at his best in a very long time.
Is that hard, being a fighter on a long layoff? Is that hard to, get right back in there like that?
Yeah, but he's made a career on it. Errol is Mr. I don't do tune-ups, and he's coming off a long layoff. Is that smart, though? I don't think so. I think, you're going to deal with ring rust because, I think of Errol at his best is when he was really busy and fighting often, and he had a style that was, he was in and out. You saw some of that, his amateur pedigree. The way he fought me and Mikey Garcia, he fought very, very smart. He didn't take unnecessary damage. But later on in his career, you saw him, he was a little more flat-footed, he was more willing to engage. He was way more fun to watch, but that's not made for longevity, and when you're not fighting as often, your timing's a little off. You get hit with big punches early on. And getting hit with big shots, I don't care who you are, it adds.
Looking back at the former champion's career, the veteran analyst highlighted the physical challenges he has endured over the years, including serious injuries and medical setbacks. He noted that previous withdrawals from scheduled fights due to health concerns were warning signs that should not be ignored. Those accumulated setbacks, he believes, raise legitimate questions about whether the former champion can successfully return to the highest level of competition.
the car accidents are always a question, you know, because that was major, man. If you lose consciousness and you knock out teeth, I mean, obviously you're also your body. And there was a second car accident too that a lot of people forgot about. He actually called off a fight because of that. He pushed off a fight date because his body wasn't right. That's not a good sign. It was never a good sign. That always concerned me. So you got to expect that had something to do with it, you know, just in general, you know, the way his career was starting to end up. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it could have been an entertainment thing because he was wildly popular and people like guys who are going to stand and bang. I don't know. I really couldn't put my finger.
Unified champion Sebastian Fundora believes the Australian challenger holds a significant advantage because of his consistent activity inside the ring. While acknowledging that the challenger has experienced defeat, Fundora argued that staying active gives him a major physical edge over an opponent returning after a long absence. He added that recovering from a devastating knockout loss and an extended layoff is far more difficult than bouncing back from a close decision defeat.
I think it's an interesting fight, you know. This guy's been losing. Tszyu's been losing, but at least he's been active, you know? At least he's been active. Spence hasn't been seen anywhere in boxing, in the ring, wise.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think losing to Crawford like that, then taking the layoff like that, and then getting the car accidents, these things are bigger losses than just the losses that Tszyu had.
The towering champion acknowledged that while the American star still has the punching power to end a fight at any moment, his lengthy absence from the ring raises serious questions about his comeback. He argued that expecting any fighter to spend years away from competition and return as the exact same dominant force is simply unrealistic.
I favor Tszyu in the fight. I won't be surprised if Spence knocks him out or win. I mean, Spence is still one of the top dogs, you know? You can never take that away from him, you know? But it's just too much of a layoff, you know? That's way too much of a layoff for anybody in anything, you know? You just can't expect to come back into the ring and be that guy who you were before.
Comparing boxing to a racing driver losing sharpness after time away, the champion criticized the decision to return without taking any tune-up fights. He warned that attempting to challenge an elite opponent while still dealing with ring rust is a major risk, and history has shown that such gambles often end badly.
You want to be comfortable with what you're doing, you know? You can't get your license or whatever and drive, become a NASCAR driver, then take 5 years off or whatever, and expect to be the top guy again, especially at the top. You know, if Spence was to come in and fight a Joey Spencer or whoever like that, you know, of that degree, and then maybe two fights like that, and then come back and fight Tszyu, at least the activity's there. At least some of the rust is off, you know, or all the rust is off. But to just jump in back to the world championship level, you can't expect to be at that level right away.
Wrapping up his thoughts, Thor admitted that only a handful of truly exceptional fighters in boxing history have successfully returned from long layoffs and immediately performed at an elite level. He said the biggest question is whether the returning former champion belongs in that rare group, or whether he is about to face one of the toughest tests of his career.
Absolutely. You need to see where you're at. How are you gonna come out? But then, you know, there's people like a Pacquiao that just don't need it at all. They just special. You get the special people, a Bernard Hopkins or George Foreman. They just come out of nowhere and they're like, you know what? I remember how to do this. So I guess it just depends on the person. Maybe Spence is one of those guys, but usually it's not that case.
Top contender Brian Mendoza offered an encouraging perspective after sharing several intense sparring sessions with the former champion. He revealed that the fighter's work ethic remains as strong as ever, describing him as someone who is fully committed to improving every day rather than simply chasing one final payday. According to Mendoza, the dedication and focus he witnessed in the gym show that the former champion is taking this comeback very seriously.
His punch resistance is there, and the work ethic, and like I said, you know, just the work that he's doing in the gym is not of someone that's clocking in, trying to show up for a check and trying to be like, oh, you know, let's see what we can do. Like he's fully locked in. He cares about improving each and every day, and that's what I respected. And you know, at the end of the day, I even told him, you know, when I was leaving that, like, you know, I appreciate him having me out, that it was just fun, you know, being in that type of high-level chess match again, where I can't just, you know, I'm not just using the same bag of tricks every day. I have to go home from the sparring and think about, okay, well, what am I going to do next time? You caught me with this. Those are signs of someone that is really thinking, still loves what they do. He has a passion for it, and that, along with, you know, I feel like this time that he's had off has helped him recover. So I feel like that mixed with his punch resistance, you know, being there, and just Spence being Spence, man. I think he's going to give him a hell of a fight.
This fight represents one of the biggest gambles in recent boxing history, with the line between a remarkable comeback and a heartbreaking setback thinner than ever. Can the former unified champion overcome years of inactivity and adversity to reclaim his place among boxing's elite? Or will the determined Australian challenger seize the moment and deliver a career-defining upset? Only the fight itself will provide the answers. Until then, the boxing world can only speculate. What do you think will happen? Share your prediction in the comments below.